Mary Louise Cook here. Welcome on into another episode of FCS All-In. Today's episode will feature the conferences around the FCS as well as national correspondent Sam Herder of Hero Sports and Craig Haley of Stats Perform. With the non-conference season winding down, there is no better time to have all eyes on the FCS as we go all in.
This is Kendra Watkins with the ASUN Conference here with another installment of FCS All-In. However, last week a thing happened, so before we move any forward, I'm going to have the ASUN's Adesola Abasoye recap all of last week's game action.
What's up? It's Adesola Abasoye coming to you with the weekly recap. Week 2 of ASUN football had 4 of the 5 of our teams on the road. Big upset as Jacksonville State beat Florida State as Zara Cooper found Damon Johnson for the 20-17 victory. It was 4th and 10. With 6 seconds left in the game, Zara Cooper dropped back and found Damon Johnson for a 59-yard completion. He fought off 2 defenders as he walked into the end zone with time expiring. This makes history as JSU was the first team in the ASUN to beat an FBS opponent.
JSU battles in-state rival North Alabama in its first contest of the season tonight at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Central Arkansas will begin Week 3 at home against Arkansas Pine Bluff, where the Bears own a 10-2 all-time record against the Golden Lions with their last matchup coming in the 2008 season. UCA will kick off their season opener, leading the conference in several offensive categories, including total offense, passing yards, passing touchdowns, and points per game. Sophomore defensive end Logan Jessup was named ASUN Defensive Player of the Year after collecting 7 tackles, 3 for loss, and 2 sacks. Newcomer Tristan Smith was named Freshman of the Week after scampering for 79 yards on just 8 carries, including a 19-yard fourth quarter run for Central Arkansas. Game time is set for 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Eastern Kentucky will host the Indiana State Sycamores in their 2001 home opener, allowing just 8 of 24 third down conversions this season. Their .308 conversion percentage leads the ASUN and ranks 24th nationally. Running back Dejon Hewitt ranks 3rd in the nation with 3 rushing touchdowns. The Colonels lead their series with the Sycamores 7-3. However, EKU has not defeated Indiana State since September 9, 2000. Game time at Roy Kidd Stadium is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure that you follow us on all of our social media platforms on Instagram and Twitter at ASUN Sports. Also, make sure that you like us on Facebook. This has been Kendra Watkins with another installment of FCS All-In, and we're all in. See you guys next week.
Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook here, bring you Ivy League football's Week 1 preview as the Ancient Eight get ready to kick off their 2021 season. And selfishly, we'll start with the game that I will be the color analyst on. That's Harvard versus Georgetown as the Crimson travel down to our nation's capital to take on the Hoyas, who are coming off their first victory of the season. Yale welcomes in Holy Cross to the iconic Yale Bowl, and this should be a good test for the Bulldogs as they are picked to finish 2nd in the Ivy League in a preseason poll, garnering 6 first-place votes. And Holy Cross knocked off UConn of the FBS, and they were a ranked team just as close as 2 weeks ago. Princeton travels to Lehigh to take on the Mountain Hawks, and the Tigers have a speedy tailback in Colin Eady that I'm excited to see. And this is one of Bob Cerase's best football teams that he's putting together. This year's Governor's Cup between Rhode Island and Brown should be a fantastic matchup because Rhode Island comes in undefeated at 2-0 on the season, and Brown has the preseason Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year in E.J. Perry, the outstanding quarterback. Al Bagnoli's Columbia Lions welcome in Marist to Manhattan to take on the Red Foxes, and this should be a fantastic matchup for the Lions, who I think may have the best special teams in the Ivy League. VMI goes up to Ithaca to take on Cornell, and this will be a huge game for the Big Red as VMI comes in ranked 22nd in the FCS, but experience is on the side of the Big Red as they have 21 fifth-year seniors. That's a lot of experience for their head coach, David Archer. Another big game when you look at Penn traveling about 2.5 hours northwest of Philadelphia to take on Bucknell, and Penn's defense may be arguably the best in the Ivy League. We'll see how that plays out because they have some tremendous talent returning at both the defensive line level and the linebacker level. And finally, but definitely not least, Dartmouth takes their show on the road, and they go to Valparaiso, Indiana to take on the Beacons. And people are sleeping on Dartmouth, in my opinion. This is one of Buddy Stevens' strongest teams on both sides of the ball. We'll see how it plays out. So that's it for this week's edition of Ivy Football League Preview. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Keep it locked on Ivy League Football on ESPN Plus, and follow the Ivy League on all of their social media accounts.
I'm Eric Danner with the WAC report for FCS All-In. It was home sweet home for 3 WAC teams as Sam Houston, Abilene Christian, and Tarleton won their home openers by a combined score of 168-28. Let's start with the number 1 ranked Bearcats hosting Southeast Missouri. Quarterback Eric Schmid added 3 more touchdown passes along with 243 yards through the air. And Sam Houston had some very big plays. Ramon Jefferson leading the ground attack with a career-high 153 yards and 2 touchdowns, including this gem for 70 yards. The defense also added another pick six. Jalen Thomas going 49 yards for the score. Bearcats roll 52-14. Freshman kicker Seth Morgan also blasting a 50-yard field goal just before the half. That's the longest Bearcat field goal since 2015. Morgan is named Ticket Smarter Special Teams Player of the Week. In Lubbock, Stephen F. Austin putting Texas Tech on upset alert. Cornerback Willie Roberts goes 18 yards for this pick six. The Lumberjacks lead the Red Raiders 13-7 at the half. Fourth quarter, Trey Selfridge to Bray Young for the score, but SFA comes up just short, falling 28-22. In Abilene, the Wildcats hosting Louisiana College. Big day for redshirt freshman quarterback Stone Earl. He goes 18 of 19 and tosses 6 touchdown passes, the most by an ACU QB since 2013. Earl is named Ticket Smarter Offensive Player of the Week. Abilene Christian rolls 62-7. We go to Stephenville. Fort Lewis traveling to Tarleton. The Texans rush for 347 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 54-7 rout of the Skyhawks. Junior linebacker DJ Harris gets 13 tackles, a sack and a half, and a safety. Harris is named Ticket Smarter Defensive Player of the Week. Saturday was also the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on the United States. The Lamar football team paid homage with the new decal celebrating the red, white, and blue. And at Dixie State in St. George, the 466th Fighter Squadron had a spectacular flyover before the Trailblazers game against Weber State. Number 1 ranked Sam Houston will have a bye this week. Head coach Casey Keeler told us at the WAC football preview he thought it was important to have bye weeks to keep the team fresh after playing in the spring. Stephen F. Austin returns to Nacogdoches and will play Jerry Rice's alma mater in Mississippi Valley State, while Abilene Christian stays at home and entertains UT Permian Basin. Both of those games start at 6 Central and both are on ESPN+. Lamar and Dixie State will both be on the road this week. The Cardinals travel to Greeley, Colorado to take on the Ed McCaffrey coached Northern Colorado Bears. UNC and Lamar are both 1-1 on the season. That is a 2 p.m. Mountain Time kickoff on ESPN+. Dixie is at UC Davis. The Aggies are ranked number 14 in the FCS and are coached by Dan Hawkins. That game starts at 7 p.m. Pacific on ESPN+. Our featured game of the week is Tarleton playing Southern Utah, a future WAC member. That game will be in Arlington at Globe Life Park, the former home of the Texas Rangers. The Texans are 1-1 to start the season. They are second in the WAC, averaging more than 460 yards of offense per game. Daniel Wright is second in the WAC with 160 yards rushing this season. Quarterback Stephen Duncan is third in passing yards. Defensive Player of the Week DJ Harris leads the conference in tackles. This will be the first ever meeting between Tarleton and the Thunderbirds. Southern Utah is 0-2 after losing to FBS opponents San Jose State and Arizona State. SUU will join the WAC next season. The action gets underway at 6 p.m. Central and will be on ESPN+. For FCS All-In, I'm Eric Danner.
Week 2 saw the Big Sky Conference put up impressive points and wins as Montana, Eastern Washington, and UC Davis remained undefeated after the Week 2 action. The Big Sky has 5 teams in the top 15, with Montana 4th and 5th overall. The Montana Grizzlies gave head coach Bobby Hauck his 100th career win at UM in style, carrying the momentum from last week's historic victory into a blowout 42-7 win over Western Illinois in front of a sold-out Washington Grizzlies stadium. Cam Humphrey threw for 5 touchdowns and over 250 yards to lead the offense, with 10 different receivers catching a pass and 4 with a score. Eastern Washington extended their win streak at Roos Field to 18 after they jumped all over Central Washington on Saturday as the Eagles raced past the visitors 63-14. Eric Berrier threw for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns to lead the Eagles to their 11th highest scoring game in program history. All eyes are on UC Davis quarterback Hunter Rodriguez after the Aggies rolled over San Diego 53-7 on the road. The junior QB completed 22 of 37 passes for a career high of 322 yards. His performance earned him back-to-back Player of the Week honors. Let's take a look at what he had to say when I chatted with him earlier this week. How are you going to take the momentum of these 2 road wins into your home opener on Saturday?
I think we just try to focus one day at a time. What we did in the past is done with and over with. We're expected to have a pretty big crowd come Saturday, so I think there's a lot of excitement around this team right now, and I think we're trending upwards, which is exciting. But we're just trying to be our best on this Tuesday, and then have great practice tomorrow, and then hopefully it leads into a good game come Saturday.
Talking about trending upwards, UC Davis is ranked in the FCS top 25. How much do you pay attention to that?
I don't really, there's still a whole lot of football left, so anything can happen. I'm not too caught up in all that stuff. It's exciting that we're getting the recognition. It's good for the program, good for the school, but I'm just worried about having a good practice on Tuesday. Everything else doesn't really help us play any better or any worse. So we just got to come out and be our best every single day.
Well, I know you're focusing on the day-to-day, but you did post career highs for passing yards and for touchdowns at San Diego. What's been working well for you, and what do you want to continue to do well?
I think our OC is doing a great job getting the ball into the playmakers' hands. He's finding creative ways to get those guys the ball. So, each new week, it seems like he comes with a new plan that helps us kind of attack what the other team does. And having an OC, we have a great relationship, so we talk almost every day about what we like, what we don't like. So just finding ways to get the guys the ball is all I could do.
You can find Hunter's full interview on Big Sky social media. Recognition is also in order for Montana State head coach Brent Vegan, who earned his first collegiate victory in Bobcat Stadium with a victory over Drake. Also earning his first collegiate victory was Northern Colorado head coach Ed McCaffrey. A complete team effort on offense, defense, and special teams allowed the Bears to rack up 391 yards on offense while holding Houston Baptist to just 266 yards. And here's a rundown of all the Week 3 action, headlined by the biggest game in the FCS, number 2 James Madison at number 8 Weber State. And that's all for the Big Sky. Be sure to follow at Big Sky FB for around-the-clock coverage.
Hi, and welcome to FCS All-In. I'm Denise Thompson, and I'm joined by Craig Haley of Stats Reform and Sam Herder of Hero Sports. It's time to talk football, ladies and gentlemen, and FCS at its best. Another great week for what we had. It's hard to believe that the weeks are going by so fast, but the games are just so thrilling that it's like, wait, you had Friday night plans? You had Saturday night plans? Oh, no. Don't worry about it. Just stick to your TV or your computer or phone. And it's just been crazy. So I'll definitely start off with Sam. While the top 10 of the FCS polls has seen a lot of shakeup the past couple of weeks, the top 5 teams are hot. What's your take on how they've been able to step up so far this season?
Yeah, it seems like most people have the same top 5. And honestly, you could order the top 5 however you want. And each team has an argument to be over the other or at the bottom, of that top 5. But yeah, I think these 5 have separated themselves a little bit as far as being that top tier. You have Sam Houston, the defending champs, off to a really good 2-0 start. looking, as balanced as they've ever been. South Dakota State has answered really their one question mark they had with their quarterback. Chris Oladokun is looking really good. Montana looks like they're back. Their defense is flying around. The offense looked pretty good against Western Illinois. James Madison looks loaded. I think offensively they look really, really good, and then defensively solid as well. Then, of course, the Bison of North Dakota State. Their one question mark was the quarterback position, and Quincy Patterson is looking the part to start. And so I think those are the 5 most balanced teams right now and the 5 favorites to be in that national title picture.
Man, that was a mouthful. And Craig, one of those top teams is number 3, James Madison. They're set to take on a number 9 Weber State Wildcat squad that, despite the difference in time zone, the 2 teams have matched up plenty of times over the past couple of years. And now they're finally set for a regular season matchup. How good is it to see top teams like that battle in a regular season?
It's terrific, Denise. I mean, obviously not common. On paper, this is probably the biggest non-conference game of the year. A long distance kind of intersectional game. James Madison going that far west is just tremendous, for them to take on this game. You have to credit both schools. I mean, these are the matchups people want. They don't always happen on the FCS level because of, travel expenses and the budget it takes to go so far. You have to weigh your schedule and the risk of games, but when these happen, they stand out. And, both teams, hopefully they'll be a little healthier. I mean, they're off, James Madison especially is off to a great start, but Weber at home is terrific. So I just think it's the game on the schedule for non-conference and just one for everybody to embrace.
And what's so crazy with both of those teams being purple, you really won't know who has a home field advantage. So I don't know if that's going to play in Weber State's favor or in James Madison's favor if they're able to have some teams travel across the country. And for you, Sam, another intense game will be North Dakota State versus Towson. How excited do you get, kind of like what I just said to Craig, on that kind of competition early this season? And the bigger question is, does it hurt or help those teams in the polls?
Yeah, anytime you can see 2 teams from the top 3 conferences in the FCS taking on each other, it's exciting. It's a tough balance for some of the top FCS teams because you don't want to schedule too heavy and absolutely load up in the non-conference, but you also don't want to schedule a bunch of teams that you might beat by 45 to 50 points. Whether it's I know some teams are scheduling or have to schedule D2, so it's kind of a balance there. With a team like James Madison, they didn't get that FBS game this year, and so their resume builder could be beating Weber State compared to South Dakota State has the FBS win, Montana has the FBS win. I think for NDSU to have two CAA opponents in their non-conference schedule is good for the Bison. I think the top tier of the CAA is James Madison, Delaware, and Villanova, but that second tier is pretty loaded in the CAA as well, where I think they'll beat each other up, and you'll see a lot of teams like in that 4-4 or 5-3 mark in the CAA. And I think Towson's one of those teams, and I think Albany is one of those teams as well, which NDSU is going to face this year.
Sam, let's talk about the SWAC for a little bit. The Jackson State squad is off to 2-0, and with a play on words, are they primed for success this time around?
Yeah, I'm being a little patient right now as far as ranking Jackson State in my top 25. Certainly their opening weekend win against FAMU was really, really impressive. I think Florida A&M is one of the favorites to win the Celebration Bowl. The offense certainly came alive this last weekend against Tennessee State, but beating Tennessee State 38-16, that doesn't necessarily move the needle for me a whole lot as far as putting Jackson State into my top 25. But obviously this weekend there's a huge opportunity for Jackson State to get an FBS win against Louisiana Monroe. Then in a few weeks there's a huge showdown with Alabama A&M within the SWAC there. And so I think that's games like that is when the needle will really be moved on Jackson State as far as me putting them in my top 25.
What about you, Craig? Do you think it's prime time for prime time in his squad this time around this fall?
Well, you can't argue with the results. I mean, I think, Coach Prime talks a big game and kind of gets ahead of himself, at least energizing the fan base. He does that. But, I think they're a much better team than the spring. And I just think the SWAC race is fascinating, and they're one of the contenders.
Craig, quite a few conferences have already played league games, but what conference race are you waiting to play out this season?
Yeah, I mean, Sam mentioned the big three of the CAA, Big Sky and Missouri Valley. I think everybody always looks at them because they're so deep, and team number 6, 7, they're all good. But I mean, I just think it's a great fall for deep talent laden races. I mean, like the SoCon Southern Conference, where in the spring the standings were kind of turned upside down with VMI winning and some of the other teams, ETSU and Mercer doing well. I think that's a fascinating race. The Southland this year, even though they lost all those schools, they're so high scoring and defense is such a premium. You look at the spring where UIW had such a big year, and then suddenly they lose the final game to a winless Northwestern State team. I think that's a deep race. And, even this today, the Ivy League kicks off where nobody really knows after 2 years off, everybody getting back to action after 22 months, that could be a wild race. So I really think it's a fun race throughout the country.
Talking about fun things, Sam, 8 FCS programs have picked up wins over FBS teams. All of them are great. We'll take the W's anytime we can. But let's talk about one of the latest, where number 8 Jacksonville State edged Florida State on the last play of the game. What did you see out there for them?
Yeah, that was I think the JSU team that we expect to see. Their first game against UAB, where they kind of got beat up on. I think that was disappointing for a lot of people because we thought the Gamecocks would be able to compete a little bit better. But how they played against Florida State, I think is, that's when JSU is playing to their potential. I think talent-wise, and if JSU and all their top players are at their best, they are probably a top 10 team in the FCS. And I think they showed that with that win, obviously, against Florida State. And, I think the defense just looked a lot better. The offense looked more explosive. Zarek Cooper looked a lot more comfortable in his first game action in about a year. And so I just think if JSU is at that level every week, they can be really good. The problem is they aren't at that level every week. It's very up and down. And so I have JSU, I think, number 17 right now in my top 25. Just because it's, they could be a top 5 team one week, and then the next week they could be the number 26 team in the FCS, just kind of depending on what team shows up. But certainly, beating Florida State alone is going to grab a lot of headlines, but doing it in Hail Mary fashion as time expires, got headlines everywhere. And so that was cool to see Jacksonville State in the FCS in general get that type of coverage.
Craig, do you agree? Was that a spark of the Jacksonville State team that fans had seen in previous years?
Yeah, it probably is a little more reflective of the program that they are. I mean, they did have the 5th most wins in the FCS, last decade. That UAB shutout loss was really disappointing. It's a team that sometimes beats itself, which kind of lends to frustration around the program. But at the same time, I mean, it's a program that's been to Frisco, to the championship game, that, does win consistently. I think, they always have FBS transfers. I just think they're a quality program. Sometimes they get beat up a little too much by fans. They have some tough games ahead, at Kennesaw, at Sam Houston. But, a win like Florida State pays off. And when they're in, tough battles down the line, they should be a much stronger team than they showed that first week, more reflective of the Florida State game.
Speaking of the big stage, the FCS is known to produce top talent, and this year it won't be any different. Who are some of the top NFL draft prospects that you have on your radar right now?
Oh, it should be a good year. I mean, the FCS is always strong on the offensive line and in the secondary, especially cornerbacks. I think it's well represented this year. I mean, Trevor Penning, is probably the top offensive lineman, the UNI left tackle, and Braxton Jones at Southern Utah. I mean, they're both 6'7" and agile, and when you think of that way, you think Cordell Volson, the North Dakota State lineman. I think it's a good year there. I mentioned the quarterbacks. Zion McCollum of Sam Houston. Orlando Jordan of Southeastern Louisiana. They've been so productive throughout their careers. I mean, they're gonna, get looked. And the other big thing is it's a very good year, I think, for offensive skills players. I mean, you have wide receivers like, Dejon Dixon of Nichols, Kristen Watson, North Dakota State is just a blur out there. He's so fast, Jaquez Ezzard of Sam Houston, Pierre Strong is just lighting it up at running back. He's a home run hitter. So I think it's a great year for skills positions. It's going to be a strong year, attention wise for FCS prospects.
I mean, listening to you, it definitely sounds like it. You're going to get our FCS hopes like come draft day, like right there. We're just going to be waiting in the first round trying to say, okay, who's going to come next? As always, thank you, Craig and Sam, for joining us. And until next time, FCS All In this Saturday. Thank you.
Welcome to the Missouri Valley Football Conference Extra Point. I'm Kelly Burke, and non-conference play is winding down. This week, 6 Valley teams are ranked in the top 25, with Missouri State jumping 6 spots to number 17. Speaking of the Bears, they've won 3 of their last 4 games against ranked FCS opponents. Missouri State won a wild one with then 16th ranked Central Arkansas 45-34 in a game that saw 5 touchdowns and 4 lead changes over the final 3 minutes and 17 seconds. The Bears taking the lead for good on an Xavier Lane touchdown catch with 29 seconds left, followed by a Tyler Wiltz pick 6. It marked the 3rd time in less than a year the 2 squads have faced off. Illinois State head football coach Brock Spack can rewrite the Redbird record books this weekend. The 13th year coach can become Illinois State's all-time winningest football coach with a victory this weekend. Currently, Spack is tied with Edwin Struck for most wins in program history at 86 after a season-opening win over Butler. The Redbirds visit Eastern Illinois in a rivalry game on Saturday. As a league, the Valley is an FCS best 10-1 this season against peer conferences. Only the CAA is close to that with an 11-2 mark. North Dakota State has been a part of that dominance, routing Valpo 64-0 last weekend for its 2nd largest margin of victory and 18th shutout of the Division I era, best in the FCS. The Bison have given up just 1 touchdown this season while averaging 46 points per game. Versus Valpo, NDSU scored on 8 of their 9 offensive possessions, averaging nearly 12 yards per play. The Bison currently lead the country, averaging 358 rushing yards per game.
Hi, I'm Mark Bryant in the Big South Network studio, getting ready for Week 3 of the 2021 football season. The Big South has 6 games on the slate today, including the first conference game of the season, so let's get ready for kickoff. The earliest Big South game in league history is this evening, as preseason favorite and nationally ranked Monmouth visits the 1-0 Charleston Southern Buccaneers. CSU is coming off a resounding 38-21 season-opening win over the Citadel. Wide receiver Garris Schwarting earned National Player of the Week honors after tying the Big South single-game record with 4 touchdown receptions. He finished with 151 receiving yards and threw for another score. Head coach Autry Denson had this to say about his wideout in addition to his thoughts on Monmouth.
Man, Garris, the way he played is the way he prepares. And I'm not going to say I'm surprised by that because Garrett's story is when we got him to walk on, so he earned a scholarship, and he's one of our captains. And so he went from being a walk-on, unrecruited to a scholarship captain. And it is literally because of his ability to compete, and he just works his butt off. So whenever you have a young man that just works as hard as he does every day, the sky's the limit for him. And I was really happy for him on Saturday. They're so solid across the board, right? They really don't have chinks in their armor. And you saw that even with, the preseason awards. I mean, I might think their entire old line made it. Their running back made it. Their quarterback made it. You go to defense and then they do a really good job because what they have is a really solid program. Kevin's been able to let his younger guys rest, get in there and develop, and he plays a ton of seniors.
Number 20 Monmouth was also victorious last week as the Hawks defeated Fordham 26-23. Juwan Fari rushed for 156 yards and a touchdown, while Justin Terry led the defense with 10 tackles and a key 2-point defensive conversion. While the Hawks have won 4 straight over Charleston Southern, head coach Kevin Callahan provides his take on the 2021 Buccaneers.
They're a veteran team, particularly on the defensive side. I think 10 of their 11 starters are guys who we saw or played against in the spring. I think most all of them are either seniors or graduate students, so they bring a veteran presence. They're a team that always plays very good defense. At least they have against Monmouth every time they've played us. So we know we're going to be challenged on that regard. And their quarterback does a fabulous job of not only distributing the ball to a talented group of receivers, but he also has the ability and the athleticism to beat you with his feet, as he showed in the Citadel game.
In other action around the league, Hampton travels to Washington, D.C. to play Howard in the inaugural Truth and Service Classic. It is the 95th meeting between the schools, and the game is also billed as the Battle of the Real HU. Hampton has won the last 4 meetings with the Bison. Campbell hosts former Big South football member Presbyterian at 6 p.m., and the Camels have won the last 2 meetings. Campbell is coming off a heartbreaking 24-23 home loss to Elon and faces a Blue Hose offense that is averaging 725 offensive yards through 2 games. Gardner Webb is playing its home opener this evening and hosts Lincoln at 6 p.m. The Runnin' Bulldogs are seeking their 4th consecutive home opening win while also looking to avoid starting 0-3 for the first time since 2017. Kennesaw State travels to Wofford to take on the Terriers at 6. The Owls have won both games in the series, both coming in the playoffs. Kennesaw is looking to avoid back-to-back regular season losses for the first time since their inaugural season of 2015. North Alabama plays its 3rd straight game against a nationally ranked opponent tonight as the Lions visit number 10 Jacksonville State at 7. It will be the 49th meeting between the programs, and UNA is seeking its first win in the series since 2003. That's the rundown of today's Big South schedule. Enjoy the games and be sure to follow Big South football on ESPN Plus and on social media at Big South Sports.
Next up is the MEAC as we take a look back at action in the league this past week and what's ahead for week 3.
Delaware State led 14-0 at one point this past Saturday, but Georgetown tied the game and forced overtime before coming away with a 20-14 win to keep the Hornets from a 2-0 start to the season. Savion Wilkerson rushed for 98 yards and a touchdown in the Hornets' 2nd straight home game. It was a good weekend for the MEAC's preseason honorees. Preseason Offensive Player of the Year Juwan Carter threw 2 touchdown passes in Norfolk State's 41-16 loss at Wake Forest, while preseason Defensive Player of the Year Jacoby Durant had a pair of interceptions in South Carolina State's 49-3 loss at Clemson, including a diving pick in the 4th quarter that was featured on SportsCenter's Top 10 Plays. Neil Boudreau tossed 3 touchdown passes in Morgan State's 69-20 loss to Tulane in Birmingham, Alabama. And elsewhere on the gridiron, North Carolina Central fell 44-10 at Marshall, and Howard fell to Maryland 62-0. All 6 MEAC football programs will be in action again this weekend. Howard will get things started in the Truth and Service Classic against Hampton in Audi Stadium. Morgan State will hit the road to take on Sacred Heart, and there will be 2 MEAC Digital Network broadcasts this weekend. Norfolk State will play host to Elizabeth City State, and North Carolina Central will take on Winston-Salem State. Both games will be live on ESPN+. Delaware State will be at East Tennessee State on ESPN+, and South Carolina State will be at New Mexico State, live on Flow Football. For more information on MEAC football, please visit our website at meacsports.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at MEAC Sports, and subscribe to the MEAC Digital Network on YouTube.
As we glance around the Southern Conference, another busy week of activity on the gridiron. Our weekly glance at the Southern Conference standings show a pair of teams off to 2-0 starts, with Wofford also in there among the unbeatens. There are 4 teams with an even start to the season at 1-1, and the Citadel and Western Carolina still in search of their first wins of the 2021 fall season. Those 2 squads I mentioned are among the 5 Southern Conference football teams either inside the national rankings or receiving votes entering play this week. ETSU ranked highest at 17th and 16th respectively, with VMI at 22nd in one poll, Chattanooga 22nd in the other, and Furman rounding out the group in the top 25, with Samford also making an appearance receiving votes in one of the 2 national polls. Looking back at last Saturday's results, the Furman Paladin defense held Tennessee Tech to just 121 yards of offense, only 26 of them in the second half, and shutting out the Golden Eagles 26-0. Devin Wynn shined in the contest, 93 yards and a pair of touchdowns. The combo of Sisson and Wynn solid in Furman's 26-0 victory. ETSU was as strong in its home opener as it had been on the road at Vanderbilt the week prior, handing UVA-Wise a 45-14 setback. Buccaneers were led by Jacob Sailors, who ended the contest with 173 all-purpose yards, accounting for 75 yards rushing, 75 yards receiving, and a pair of touchdowns. Again, ETSU kept on rolling by a final of 45-14. Defending Southern Conference champion VMI experienced its first loss of the season, falling to Kent State by a final of 60-10. In that all-Palmetto State showdown, Charleston Southern got the better of the Citadel. 38-21 was the final in the Citadel's contest. Mercer played on the road at top-ranked Alabama, falling 48-14 to the defending national champions and current top team in the land. UT Martin upended Samford by a final of 33-27 in a tight one for the Birmingham crew. And Western Carolina came up short against 4th-ranked Oklahoma, Sooners rolling to a 76-0 victory. One other Southern Conference team picking up a win last weekend, Chattanooga shutting out North Alabama, a 20-0 victory for the Mocs. Devonshea Maxwell had the highlight moment, picking up a career best and school record 3.5 sacks, 3 of which came in a 4-play stretch on a key drive for UNA to preserve the shutout. Once again, the final, Chattanooga 20, North Alabama nothing. This week's Southern Conference slate begins with a noon kickoff in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The Chattanooga Mocs heading to the SEC's Wildcats for a high noon SEC Network showdown. VMI is at Cornell in an afternoon kick. Samford is on the road at Western Carolina in league action. North Greenville is at the Citadel. Kennesaw State will take on Wofford in Spartanburg. Delaware State is at ETSU for a 7:30 kick, and at the same time, Furman will be looking to play up in an FBS game of their own, taking on the ACC's NC State Wolfpack in Raleigh. So this has been our journey through Southern Conference action for Week 3 of FCS football.
It was a sensational Week 2 in CAA football as the league went 6-0 against non-conference foes to improve to 11-2 versus FCS teams on the year. There were also 3 conference games that featured noteworthy performances last Saturday. JMU's Ethan Radke broke the FCS all-time record for points by kicker and tied the FCS career mark for field goals in the Duke's victory over Maine. New Hampshire head coach Sean McDonald recorded his 100th career win in conference play, becoming just the 3rd coach in CAA history to reach the milestone as the Wildcats beat Towson. Finally, Rhode Island freshman defensive tackle Wesley Neal Jr. tallied an FCS high 5 tackles for loss as the Rams edged Albany. Week 3 across CAA football is a busy one with 11 games on the slate. There's just a single conference matchup, and it's a big one as 18th ranked Richmond travels to 9th ranked Villanova. Both teams have been dominant in getting off to 2-0 starts, but Spiders head coach Rush Huseman and Wildcats head coach Mark Ferrante know the challenge will be much tougher on Saturday.
I think they've had 9 possessions starting in the opponent's territory, and that's a credit to their defense, getting takeaways, their special teams units. All those things are giving their offense an opportunity to to get really short fields, and we cannot do that. If we give them a bunch of short fields, we're in a world of hurt.
What doesn't impress me about the Spiders, you watch those guys, and I think it's going to be a really well-matched contest. They're much more similar to us than our previous two opponents. I think it's going to be one heck of a CAA contest, and whenever you jump in the league, you better be ready, regardless of who you're playing. So, we're going to try to do what we can to prepare as best we can and go out there and hopefully perform at a consistent level against the Richmond Spiders.
One of the biggest games across FCS football this week takes place in Ogden, Utah, where second-ranked James Madison takes on eighth-ranked Weber State. Both squads are perennial national powers, and Duke's head coach Curt Cignetti is looking forward to seeing how his team will perform.
It's going to be a very, very tough test for us, and we are going to have to play our A game and go on the road in a hostile environment, keep our poise every play in, play out from beginning to end. To come out with the result that we want. We need to take our game, a step further. We improved last week. We got to improve this week.
Towson plays its home opener on Saturday night against fourth-ranked North Dakota State. It's the first meeting between the two teams since 2013 when the Tigers and Bison squared off in the FCS National Championship game. Towson head coach Rob Ambrose has a lot of respect for all that NDSU has accomplished over the past decade.
They'll make mistakes, but they'll correct them quickly. And they'll never make mistakes that are going to kill them. And that's one of the things, like the ability to limit your mistakes and still be aggressive is one of the keys to success. And they do it every year, no matter who the personnel is. That's true credit to the entire program.
Unbeaten Rhode Island faces in-state rival Brown for the Governor's Cup. The series has been extremely competitive over the years, and Rams head coach Jim Fleming knows his team will need to be at its best to earn a third straight win over the Bears.
I believe it was tied at 19-19. So we got an opportunity to go one step up, but if we in doing so, we would be matching the longest win streak in our school's history of 3 in a row, which is the most it's ever been. So my point being is anything can happen in this game. It's going to be emotional. They're going to be ready, and we've got to be able to play our best game to go ahead and go down there again and get a W.
Here's a look at the rest of Saturday's schedule, which includes 4 games against FPS competition as Stony Brook travels to fourth-ranked Oregon, Delaware meets Big Ten foe Rutgers, UAlbany takes on ACC member Syracuse, and Elon makes the short trip to Appalachian State.
Ralph Ventry here to discuss 2 significant Week 2 victories for the Northeast Conference. Let's start with the Stats Perform FCS Team of the Week, the Duquesne Dukes. Jerry Schmidt's crew marched into Athens, Ohio, and posted a 28-26 victory over the Mid-American Conference member. It was Duquesne's first ever victory over an FBS team. The Dukes had a close call at Buffalo in 2014, leading early in the fourth quarter. Duquesne also jumped out to a 14-0 lead over Hawaii in 2018, but this time they were able to close the deal against Ohio. Not only was the end result impressive, but the way Duquesne played for 60 full minutes deserves a hat tip. The NEC squad controlled possession against Ohio. The Dukes piled up 26 first downs during the game, 11 more than the Bobcats managed. Duquesne chewed up more than 41 minutes of clock while matriculating the ball up and down the field. Meanwhile, the Duquesne defense kept Ohio out of the end zone for the entire second and third quarters. Shout out to NEC Offensive Player of the Week, quarterback Darius Parantis, for notching a victory in his first ever start for Duquesne. And shout out to NEC Special Teamer of the Week, Brian Brusdowitz, 4 for 4 on field goals in the victory. Now we shine the light On to the 2-0 Merrimack Warriors. Patriot League preseason favorite Holy Cross was riding high. The Crusaders owned a spot in the national top 25 after posting a victory over FBS member UConn in week 1. But then Merrimack came to town. The Warriors invaded Worcester and spoiled the party, reclassifying into the NEC from the Division II ranks. Merrimack manhandled Holy Cross in a 35-21 triumph. It was the Warriors' first victory over an FCS top 25 team in their 2+ seasons as a Northeast Conference member. They didn't just do it, they did it in style. Merrimack made 9 more first downs than Holy Cross, and they outgained the Crusaders by more than 100 yards. Quarterback Weston Elliott threw 2 touchdown passes. The run game netted 200 yards, and Anthony Witherstone had an eye-popping pick for the ages. A top 25 win over the Patriot League preseason favorite, a great building block for Dan Curran's Warriors. Now it's on to week 3, and be sure to watch the NEC's featured game this week on the ESPN app. Wagner at St. Francis, live 12 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And of course, remember to follow at NEC Football on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Ralph Ventry. See you again soon.
Ryan Greenhagen was named to the Buck Buchanan watch list prior to the start of the 2021 season, and he's surely living up to that honor just 2 games in. After setting the NCAA Division I single game record with 31 tackles against Nebraska in week 1, he added 28 more in week 2, and he now leads all Division I by 30 tackles. Hi, I'm Maria Travel-Peace in the Patriot League studio for FCS All-In, and I want to start this week by giving some advice to any quarterbacks playing Fordham. If you see 47 across the line of scrimmage, run the play the other way. And even then you might not be successful because the senior linebacker has 59 tackles already and is set to have a historic season. If he were to keep up this pace, he'd record 324 tackles in 2021, which would easily break the Patriot League all-time record. Early season projections are in most cases deceiving, but even still, with 59 tackles and 9 games to go, Holy Cross alum Rob McGovern's 1988 record is going to be challenged this season. Fordham came up short in its home opener against number 21 Monmouth, falling 26-23, despite 3 touchdown passes by preseason Offensive Player of the Year Tim DeMorat. His 39-yard connection with DeKeese Carter late in the 4th cut it to 3 points, but that was as close as they would get. Georgetown opened its season in week 2 with a thriller at Delaware State. Joseph Brunel threw a pair of touchdown passes to rally the Hoyas back from a 14-0 deficit, and in overtime, Joshua Stakely forced his way into the end zone on a 5-yard run to win it 20-14. Georgetown will open at home in week 3, and the Hoyas are one of 4 Patriot League schools facing the Ivy League. Holy Cross will look to bounce back at Yale, while Lehigh hosts Princeton and Bucknell welcomes in Penn. All 7 games in week 3 will be available on ESPN Plus or ESPN3. Georgetown won both of its Ivy League matchups in 2019, winning 24-10 on the road at Columbia and 14-8 at Cornell a week later. Holy Cross and Yale met in 2018 to play one of the more memorable Ivy vs. Patriot League matchups in recent history. The Crusaders fell behind 21-0 in the first quarter, but rallied to tie it with a pair of fourth-quarter touchdowns. In overtime, current senior kicker Jared Ng kicked a 45-yard game winner. We'll have all the highlights, and you'll be able to catch them by following us on Twitter at Patriot League TV. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you back here next week.
Week 2 of Southland Conference football is officially in the books, and once again we had more amazing team and individual performances to highlight. Let's take a look at our Southland Conference Weekly Awards presented by Geico. After hauling in a school record 14 catches for 198 yards and 2 touchdowns, Nicholls' Dejon Dixon is named the Offensive Player of the Week. The senior wide receiver scored the first and last touchdown of the game for the Colonels as they nearly beat FBS opponent Louisiana on the road. The 198 yards not only tied the program's single game mark, but also helped him surpass the career 3,000 receiving yard mark, becoming the 6th Southland player to do so. His 2 scores also moved him into a tie for 6th on the league leaderboard with 29 career touchdown receptions. Despite facing 2 FBS opponents to open the season, Dixon leads the FCS in receptions per game with 10.5 and receiving yards per game with 152.5. This week's Defensive Player of the Week honor goes to UIW's Kelechi Analabechi. The senior linebacker picked off Prairie View A&M quarterback J1 Pass not once, but twice in back-to-back drives in the first half. Returning the first for only 3 yards, he was able to take the second one 41 yards. Analabechi also recorded a team-high 11 total tackles and a quarterback hurry in the 40-9 victory over the Panthers. And Southeastern's Austin Dunlap is this week's Special Teams Player of the Week. The sophomore punter averaged 50.5 yards per punt on a pair of kicks in the Lions' 45-42 loss to FBS opponent Louisiana Tech. He booted a 49-yarder to close out the opening series, and then wasn't needed again until the final quarter, where he kicked one for 52 yards. He also added a 15-yard run on a fake punt to extend the team's final scoring drive, making it a 3-point game at the end. A big congrats to Dejon Dixon, Kelechi Analabechi, and Austin Dunlap, our Player of the Week award winners. Now let's take a look at our Southland games we have on tap for this weekend. 5 schools will be in action Saturday for the last full weekend of non-conference play, with Nichols on a bye this week. After winning its game Week 1 and nearly beating FBS opponent Louisiana Tech last Saturday, Southeastern travels to the East Coast to go head-to-head with Central Connecticut State. Finally opening up their season at home, the Northwestern State Demons will play host to UT Martin at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Riding high off their first win of the season over Prairie View A&M in their home opener last weekend, this week UIW takes on FBS opponent Texas State at 6 p.m. on ESPN3. The Cardinals are looking to beat an FBS team for the first time in program history. And both McNeese and HBU are looking for their first wins of the season as they each take on SWAC schools. The Huskies battle the Prairie View Panthers at 6 p.m., while the Cowboys play Southern at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Again, here's a look at the full Southland slate for Saturday. Best of luck to all of our teams taking the field this weekend.
In this next segment, the OVC talks with Tennessee Tech head coach Dwayne Alexander.
Tennessee Tech head coach Dwayne Alexander recently began a term on the NCAA Committee on Ethical Conduct and Sportsmanship.
Well, I'm certainly excited about the work of this committee and being on this committee, and it's certainly an honor to have been selected and appointed to this committee, and for people to think enough of myself and our program here at Tennessee Tech to be considered to serve on it. I did serve a 3-year term with the American Football Coaches Association on the ethics committee through the AFCA back in the 2009, 10, 11, 12, right through that stretch, and really enjoyed that work. You want players to enjoy playing the game. Coaches want to enjoy coaching the game. Officials are officiating because they want to enjoy officiating. They love football. They want to officiate the game and enjoy it. Fans come to the game to enjoy the game, so everyone should have some enjoyment in what they're doing. And I think, you take sportsmanship out of all of that, and you take and you start allowing other forms of conduct to reach into that. I think you take away from all that. I think you take away from the fun of playing. I think you take away from the fun of coaching, the fun of watching the game. Nobody really wants to watch, all of that. They don't want to watch a couple teams to come out there and fight and brawl. They want to see them play good, hard-nosed football.
Alexander talked about the work of the committee, including promoting respect between players, coaches, fans, and officials in a competitive atmosphere.
I certainly am a 100% big believer that you can be a competitive coach, a competitive player, and a competitive fan that wants your team to win, but still do that within the realm of doing it the right way. Play hard, but when the game is over, be able to shake hands and have respect for your opponent after the game is over. It doesn't mean it's going to be there's going to be emotions. It's an emotional game, but being able to handle that to a point where there's respect for the opponent, for the officials, and for everybody that's responsible for putting on the game. And that's really the work of the committee is how to do that. How can you get that word out? How can you promote that amongst your conference, amongst your schools?
To his own team, Coach Alexander has preached the importance of the Golden Eagle way of doing things on a daily basis.
On here at Tennessee Tech, our foundation is the Golden Eagle way. I use it in all of our social media posts and things of that nature, but it's something I'm a big believer in, and basically it's just about doing things the right way. I said in my initial press conference when I was introduced as the head football coach here that Tennessee Tech University wanted to win. We wanted to win championships, but we want to win those the right way, and I'm certainly very proud of the sportsmanship awards we won from the past 3 years. And, to me, I think it just sends a message that people look at our team and how we play and how our guys go about their business and feel like those are guys that are enjoying playing. They enjoy playing the game. Those coaches enjoy coaching. Those coaches enjoy coaching the players that are playing. The players enjoy playing for the coaches they're coaching for. And when we do an excellent job, I think, from our administrative staff, from Mark Wilson to all of our administrative people, to make sure that we treat our opponents the right way when they come to dress, come to play. And, I just think that it's all a big picture of a thing, but it's very important for me that people look at our program and look at our young men and how we go about it as people that are trying to do things right and handle themselves in the right way.
The Pioneer Football League found success on the field last week, picking up 7 wins in non-conference action. Through 2 weeks, 4 programs remain undefeated, with Stetson and Presbyterian holding 2-0 records. Dayton put together a strong second half to earn a 17-10 win over Eastern Illinois. After trailing at halftime, the Flyers found the end zone twice to go on top 14-3. They held EIU scoreless for most of the half, before giving up a touchdown in the final minute. Brandon Easterling earned Co-Defensive Player of the Week honors for the league, leading Dayton with 8 tackles and forcing a fumble in the third quarter that led to a score by the offense. St. Thomas earned a win in the program's Division I debut, defeating Michigan Tech 12-10. The Tommies finished in dramatic fashion, taking the lead on a 32-yard field goal from Lewis Hyde with 59 seconds remaining. Hyde earned Special Teams Player of the Week honors after this key performance. Also recognized by the league was Johnson Falla, a Co-Defensive Player of the Week. He recorded an interception and 3 pass breakups in the Tommies' win. Morehead State earned a huge win over Point, defeating their opponent 62-9. The Eagles scored the game's first 59 points with Mark Pappas under center. Pappas was named the PFL's Offensive Player of the Week after throwing a career-high 5 touchdowns in the game while passing for 286 yards. Presbyterian continued its offensive prowess with a 68-3 win over Fort Lauderdale last weekend. Blue Hose quarterback Ren Heffley threw 4 touchdown passes in the game, while racking up 309 yards in the air. Butler broke out to a 28-7 halftime lead and never looked back en route to a 49-24 win over DePaul. Quarterback Brett Bushka passed for 161 yards and ran for another 105 to lead the offense. In total, the offense recorded 419 rushing yards. The Hatters of Stetson picked up a win over Ave Maria, posting a 49-16 victory. Jalen Leary rushed for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win, while John Cedar threw a trio of touchdown passes. Davidson fended off a fourth quarter comeback from Shaw, holding on for a 28-26 victory. The Wildcats were successful on the ground, posting 335 rushing yards in the contest. There are 9 games on the schedule this week, including 5 matchups against teams ranked in the top 20 by Stats Perform. Here's a look at that schedule.
And next up, we have the SWAC taking us all in.
This week in SWAC football, 3 Jackson State Tigers and 1 Florida A&M Rattler was named Players of the Week. Jackson State freshman quarterback Shador Sanders was named the Offensive Player of the Week. After his stellar performance at the Southern Heritage Classic, he completed 30 of 40 passes for 362 yards and 3 touchdowns. Sanders' 30 completions set a new Southern Heritage Classic record as he distributed the ball to a total of 9 different Jackson State receivers. James Houston was named the Defensive Player of the Week. Houston led the Jackson State defensive efforts on Saturday in the Tigers' win over Tennessee State. He tallied 10 tackles to go along with 4.5 sacks for a negative 33 yards. Houston also added 5 total tackles for loss during Jackson State's 38-16 win. Warren Newman was named the Specialist of the Week. His 81-yard punt return in the fourth quarter proved to be a key score in Jackson State's 38-16 win over Tennessee State at the Southern Heritage Classic. The punt return was the longest in the history of the Southern Heritage Classic. Newman also tallied a game-high 7 receptions for 26 yards. Deontay Williams from Florida A&M was named the Newcomer of the Week. He found his way into the backfield often, and he recorded 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and forced a fumble during Florida A&M's 34-7 win over Fort Valley State. He was a key contributor for the Rattlers' defense that held Fort Valley to 35 total rushing yards for the game. Let's take a look at the scores from around the SWAC. Alabama State scoreless against Auburn 62-0. Southern defeated Miles 41-24. FAMU on top of Fort Valley 34-7. Alcorn State slid past Northwestern State 13-10. Jackson State over Tennessee State 38-16. Texas Southern falls to Baylor 66-7. Grambling drops one to Southern Miss 37-0. Bethune-Cookman falls to UCF 63-14. And Prairie View A&M fell to Incarnate Word 40-9. To stay up to date on the latest news on the SWAC, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the SWAC, or visit us at swac.org.
Thanks for going all in with us. You can catch every episode of FCS All In right back here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to stay up to date on all the latest FCS All In content. Until next week, let's be sure to keep the conversation going on social media by using the hashtag FCS All In.